webinar on how two programs have implemented the PA-CAT. We're very grateful you guys are here to kind of join the conversation to have an open discussion about the PA-CAT and what those programs have experienced along the way. My name is Claudia. I'm the VP of Client Services with Exam Master, and I'm not sure where you're located, but we are currently having some snow in Delaware. So this is our first snow of the season. So if you are in a snowy region, I hope you're staying warm today. If you have any questions along the way as we're going through the presentations and webinar, please feel free to put them into the chat. We have reserved time for a Q&A at the end. Dr. Scott Massey was kind enough to offer to moderate our webinar today. And Scott, I'm just going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Claudia. So welcome everyone to the webinar PA-CAT in Practice, how two programs have implemented the PA-CAT. I'm honored to welcome Dr. Avril Nimblett-Clark from Miami-Dade College, Dr. Brian Lauf and Dr. Jeff Weinert from University of Nevada, Reno School of Medicine. What we're trying to accomplish today is you will learn some implementation strategies from experienced programs that have already been using the instrument, some of the benefits and lessons learned, and then live Q&A. I will be posing questions to all the participants sequentially, and they will be discussing their experiences along the way. And as Claudia indicated, there will be room for questions of the participants at the conclusion of the Q&A session. So I'm going to lead off, and Dr. Nimblett-Clark, I'm going to ask you the question first, to describe why you chose to use the PA-CAT.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. So here at Miami-Dade College, the implementation of the PA-CAT actually occurred prior to my tenure here at the institution. But in discussion, I think the key was that understanding some of the challenges or the lack of correlation over the years with the GRE, which was probably the most predominant tool used by most programs. The program was looking for something that was more geared to PA applicants that hopefully in the long run would help us to identify better those applicants' abilities to matriculate through the program, finish, and consequently pass the PANS.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm going to pose the question to Dr. Lauf to describe why you chose to use the PA-CAT at University of Nevada, Reno School of Medicine.
Thanks so much, Scott. We appreciate being part of this. We were introduced to this very early on when we developed the program. From the inception, we did not want to use it as an admissions tool. We were pretty intentional of saying we're interested to understand what our admission selection led to preparedness of our students within our curriculum. So what we ended up using it for is for students who are already selected. They would take the test at no cost, additional cost to them, and we would then gather that data to understand where they stood prior to entering our curriculum. Additionally, what we wanted to gather some data over time to understand, was our curriculum actually filling that gap once they were with us? And so that's our two primary reasons for using it, is to understand their preparedness and then evaluating our curriculum to make them successful.
Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to come back to that in more detail in a little bit. Dr. Weinert, would you wish to contribute to that?
Yes, thank you for having us in this discussion. I appreciate it. Yes, so like Dr. Lauf said, that this is really a supportive tool, and so since we have this measurement after students are accepted in the program, we really like to look at who may need support, and so we kind of look at those numbers and say, okay, let's do some predictions based on how we can get some students that may need some extra support. And so it's been our goal.
That's a perfect segue to the second question. I'm going to start with Dr. Nimblett-Clark. How have you used the composite score as a tool to identify students at risk?
Okay. So I will kind of tie into what the outcome was as we evolved over time in terms of using this. So that's a really good question. And what it is that the PACAT really, especially the composite score, has really now allowed us to identify those students who will be at risk. It has by the time I got here, we had only had 2 years of data. Now we are out to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So we have now used it. So about 5 years now in terms of 5 classes where that's sitting in the program. And we have really found a sweet spot for that number now, which for us is 525. And we kind of use that to leverage not only just looking at this is a hard score, for selecting someone, but also using it as leverage to say, hey, this is a good applicant. This individual is a fit for our program. How can we help to contribute to helping them to be successful? So it has really become a significant part of how we make decisions, from admissions to even identifying our students in terms of our didactic success, first semester didactic, second semester didactic, which for most programs tend to be the most challenging of all of them. It has really become a solid tool for us to help to work with our students in that way.
I'm quite certain that the members in the audience are going to want to know, how did you determine 525? What was the process that you went through to analyze the data?
Right. So so we looked at trends over every year, every cohort that we have had. We have looked at them. We collected data for their first didactic year. We looked at that over a 3-year period, and the actual number, or the correlated number, is about 519 or so. We as a program kind of decided that 525 would be a sweeter spot for us. And we think that, and that's just from following our data trends, right? So we didn't just pick it out of a hat, but we really kind of followed that. Then we dropped it back and just begin to look at our students in terms of which students were successful in terms of first semester. We also looked at it in relation to courses. So for us, the first semester is our basic science. And for the anatomy course, particularly, which is sometimes the course that students would have a challenge with, we had very strong correlations with that number. So based on that, we have actually used that information to do some things to help our students before entering the program. So we have actually looked at, the Exam Master pre-matriculation platform. So initially, when we looked at it, we picked the students who had the scores that were below 525. But last year, which is the second time we've used it, we offered it to all students. So we're just now trending in that way. So we have had really good outcomes in terms of looking at our data trends and feeling very good that these results, we are getting the results that we would like to see from this product.
Thank you so much for that information. I'm going to pose this to Dr. Weinert first. How have you used the composite score at all in your program?
Yeah, we understand that these composite scores have a lot of variability, especially since we allow students, once they're accepted, we have this, okay, now that you're in the program, please take the exam, right? And so there's a little bit of, did they prepare for it? Did they not prepare for it? So we accept that's just kind of an understood part of our data. And so we do see, after looking at the data for we've had our 3rd year now, and I did some number crunching for our first class, and we do see strong correlations between didactic performance and composite scores. And so that also correlates to PANCE success. So it seems to have a retention trend, like these kinds of people that score high on the PA-CAT will be the kind of people that just naturally retain information. So it makes sense that we use it as a supportive tool to try and guide those people in.
Okay. And Dr. Lauf, do you want to elaborate on anything about that question?
Yeah, I'll add just briefly one thing that we looked at it as Dr. Weiner said, there's that confounding component of how did students actually prepare, as it was not a high stakes for our program, but we look at that to see, is it validating our admissions process as we go through and identify students that we feel are going to be successful in our program? Is that process actually panning out based on this PA-CAT and then subsequently all the way through the PANCE? So that's another factor that we use it for, is for that validation of our admissions process.
Okay. So I think that's a good segue into the next question, and I'll start with Dr. Nimblett-Clark. How does it contribute to the admissions process? And I think that maybe we can kind of differentiate. Do you use it as a diagnostic tool for incoming students or as an admissions tool to select candidates?
Yeah, so no, it is, when I came, it was established as an admission tool, and we have continued to maintain it in that way. So we have a rubric. We did revise the rubric subtly after about the third set of data that we had, because then we were really kind of able to see, and we where things, where we were putting those weights, and we felt that the composite score definitely for us was much more meaningful. So we do, so they do get a score attached to that. Now that we're out further, I think now we're beginning to look, and as a matter of fact, it's our discussion coming up in terms of even looking to see what are the factors within our admission tool. It may be meaningful in terms of making these two correlations to see if we have a better applicant to our program, or selection, selecting an individual for our program, sorry.
So just to clarify, so it's part of your admissions rubric.
Yes.
And you mentioned about the 525. Is there does it contribute to whether you select a candidate for admissions or not?
Oh, no. So well, yes. Let me take that back. It does contribute to selecting applicants for admission. So they're very clear that that's our minimum score that we use, but it does not mean that we won't look at somebody lower, because we still want to look at a whole student, applicant profile. Like one number, it's a test. So we are mindful of that. And so we do look at our applicants broader and have further discussion for that. So what might come into play might be GPA. And, their CUME versus their science GPA versus maybe how many clinical hours they've done. So looking at those, that whole package is a part of our process. But they do have a clear score that we target.
Okay. So I'll go back to Dr. Lauf, kind of maybe a little bit more detail about how it contributes to the admissions process. And I know you administer it when they've already kind of matriculated, so it maybe not be applicable, but you do use it somewhat as a diagnostic tool. So can you elaborate on like what you look at? And I don't think we mentioned anything about composite score, cut scores based on your analysis, but anything else you use from it?
Yes, thank you. You're correct. We use it as a diagnostic tool, not a selection tool. We don't have any cutoffs or any particular thing that would prevent a student from matriculating. And we looked at the data, the 3 years that we do have. So we're just now at a point where we have enough data to really understand its value within our curriculum. And that's always been our point, is how does this in our curriculum contribute or not? So how we use it specifically is really we take the data and helps us strengthen the alignment between the student readiness, the curricular design, and then ultimately what Dr. Weinert does for us, the student success program.
Excellent. Dr. Weiner, do you want to elaborate on that question at all?
Sure. Yeah. It's like Dr. Lauf said, I was just able to just put in some of the data from now that we have PANCE values from 3 years ago, and they all graduated and all that's come in. And so it does make some solid alignment between the didactic scores, and so it's just and then the didactic scores also correlate to PAN success. So it really is kind of validating in a way that, you know, our first year is showing performance based on the PA CAT values, and so we're going to continue to look forward on this. We have a small class, but it already looks like there are some definite trends. So we can just pick out the basic, you know, the very basic conclusion is those who are performing well in didactic do well on the PANCE, and those who are doing well on the PA CAT tend to do better in didactic. So it's all there. Pretty good correlations. I did some data with some good R values recently. So these are, and so as we continue through our program, we're just going to keep looking at this data and looking in the rearview mirror while we still look forward to see how we can apply all this knowledge. Again, mostly in a supportive role for now.
Thank you so much. So Dr. Nimblett-Clark, from more of an application viewpoint, can you describe how the PA CAT's been helpful in your student success system in your program?
So it has helped us in a couple of ways. And now we're in the process of even reimagining a little bit more. So we have what we call a early intervention process that we use. And initially, we identified that without using these scores, initially, we just kind of identified students by the way they were remediating on their knowledge and skills and things like that, or how they were performing on certain assessments. And so now this score kinds of helps us, because as we look at it, as we are looking forward, we have some courses that over the last 4 years, 4 classes or so, we are seeing a clear correlation with those classes. So we know that, for example, now that if the student scores are maybe below a 500 on the PA CAT, these are students that we need to really begin to identify earlier, not wait for them to remediate, but identify and begin to give them the tools to be successful in the program. So that being said, I believe now that we are at a point where we can now even reimagine how we do our new student orientation, where we can begin to implement a student success program from there. So this is where we are going to support what we are already doing. So we already, identify them, but how can we do that sooner than wait for them to get maybe to the second semester before before we say, oh, this student is really in trouble. So so what I've found is the prediction for first semester, it definitely correlates, even to support back what Dr. Weinert said, correlates in terms of your didactic performance. So for us, that's important. We have implemented, as I discussed before, a pre-matriculation package. I thought it was a little bit early for us, but I think now we kind of begin to know what those numbers mean and how we can even extract that data to further support students as they matriculate through the program. And within our student, our new student or student success program, I do think we can do better in terms of really getting a platform for study skills and how to really guide students differently in terms of how to be successful in a PA program. So that's the next charge for us based on what I am seeing, in terms of the trends that we have been seeing now.
So the student success skills that you discussed, would that be something that would be implemented and available for all incoming students?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, and so so my goal is, as a matter of fact, we're getting ready to. My annual meeting was supposed to be ahead of this, but it didn't happen, so it's next week. But the plan is to really begin to have this structure in discussion now of how we really reimagine what our new student orientation is looking like. So let's not just dump them with what you expect in the program, but how do we give them support tools and mechanisms to move forward? So that's one strategy that will be put in place. The next is we have been revamping and slowly remodeling how we remediate students and a better way to track them through the system. And I think we have been getting much better at that. And so that's the next step, and making those, alignments. But for us, it's clear when we have, our data really supports if students who have PA-CAT scores, composite scores specifically, less than 525, they do have a higher attrition in our program. And it's never our goal to just let a student go, because that may not be the only factor on the day that they took that test, but how can we look at this, in a broader view and help to retain those students?
Thank you so much for that. Dr. Weinert, I know your role at the program is student success. How has it contributed to the student success system at the Reno program?
In particular, I think Dr. Clark said is really, especially at the early intervention, is especially important. And I do the basic science as students are coming in for the first semester, and they are wide-eyed, and they need that extra help. But I do think that it does have some relevance especially when we're looking at anatomy. For some reason, it seems to be that class in particular, and so we've implemented a support system for our anatomy program in particular, but just being able to give specific help for students that need this, it really, and with the knowledge of the PA-CAT relationship to the anatomy scores, is very helpful in particular.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Lauf, do you want to add anything to the question?
Just that we do expand it both on individual scores, but we also look at the cohort as a whole and how they perform, and perhaps needing to adjust some things based on the cohort overall scores, and matching those strong students based on the PA-CAT with other students who may be struggling, and having that data helps us really be intentional.
Okay, thank you. I'm coming up to question number 6. Dr. Nimblett-Clark, what challenges have you faced while implementing the PA-CAT, and if so, how did you work through that process?
Well, no challenges for me, because when I got here, it was already here. I think the biggest challenge I had, of course, was because it was new to us. So by the time I got here, they would have admitted 2 classes under that, using the tool. And then while I got here, we admitted another one. So for me, as an individual joining the program, evaluating where things were, I think the key was understanding what do these numbers mean for me. And, once I was able to really compound that data and be able to look at the trends, I think I came into a much more comfortable space of how to make tweaks depending on that. So I think that was the biggest thing. For me, as a new director, was really identifying what those numbers mean. Now, if from the aspect of the student, people might ask, sometimes we do have the one student who says one or two, but not much that says, in terms of affordability, and we know that Exam Master has, the scholarship available for them, so we give them that guidance, that type of thing. But other than that, I would say the process was seamless for the program in that way.
Thank you so much. And I'll pose the question to Dr. Lauf as far as when you implemented it for the purpose you did, was there challenges with that?
Absolutely. I think the biggest challenge that we experience is what are we going to use this for? And having a clear objective from the outset. So we didn't end up with data that we didn't understand why we were collecting it. So once we arrived at that, we were ready to go. And I think the other thing is to be open that it could morph into something beyond just a diagnostic tool. And I think we're at that place now where we could potentially use it as a selection tool, and it really does help us now know how it interfaces with our curriculum specifically. So that was the biggest challenges. And then finally, for the student side of it, is communicating to them what our expectations and the use of it was. And so with each year, I think we are better at telling students why we're doing it and how it impacts their success or support that we can provide to them.
Dr. Weinert, do you want to add anything to that question?
Yeah, there's a lot of when I interview the students every year when they come in, I say, "What do you think about that PA-CAT?" They're just like, "Oh boy, what an exam!" So it is kind of putting them through the ringer, and a lot of them worry about it. Oh, I didn't do so well. It's a lot of, and I guess with your implementation, going back to the question of implementation, it really isn't too much of a problem. They are already in the program, and we just have to follow up sometimes on a couple of students. It's like, hey, don't forget to take this exam. I think that's just a little normal behavior. They're trying to maybe study up for it and maybe putting it off. But we have a very clear communication system, and so they know that we expect it. They have a deadline. They get it in before they start their summer. So it's not. It hasn't been a problem. It's pretty available and easy for them to take.
I got to say, I don't think I've ever heard feedback that the students really enjoyed taking that exam. Well, we have 34 people in the audience, and I'm going to open up for questions. And I don't know, Claudia, if you can maybe help facilitate the questions, that would be great.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So Ashley had a question about the score requirement for Miami-Dade, Dr. Nimblett-Clark, but I believe we have already discussed that. So the next question then would be, good morning from Seattle. I am curious what each program found for the Pearson value and R-squared values for the PA-CAT in relation to didactic performance and then PANCE.
Okay, so I'll have to search my number at hand. For the Pearson, but it was greater than 0.5 and above. I know off the top of my head. I don't have the numbers with me right now because I didn't bring those with me. Probably should have, but let's see. I will look it up and go back. Yeah.
I do have a graph I can share with you all.
You can grab some. Okay.
Don't mind. I'll see this.
Yeah.
We have some initial data that came from our first class. You can see some of our values there, 0.51, PA-CAT to PANCE, and then didactic is the strongest. Didactic performance to PANCE, but I mean, it correlates to PA-CAT versus didactic. So everything seems to correlate in the right direction. Open any questions and I'll stop share on this.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Weinert. Okay, we have a next question for the University of Nevada. And that is, do you require applicants to take the GRE? And if so, why use the GRE and not the PACAT if you are still requiring students to take the PACAT? Dr. Lauf, would you like to address that question first?
Excellent question. And we certainly had a lot of discussion as we were developing the program about admissions testing, and we do not require the GRE. And that was also part of our initial plan, is not to have that. We felt it was a barrier and not necessarily helpful in selecting students in a curriculum that had not been tested. So we knew that students who take a GRE did well or not on a GRE. Had no correlation or data to say they were going to be successful in our program. So we felt like that would also perhaps hinder our thoughts and biases towards a student based on a number. And so we have swayed away from GRE and initially away from the PACAT as well for those same reasons. But I think we have now reached a point where we're talking about using the PACAT over a GRE.
Okay, excellent. Dr. Weinert, did you have anything to add here?
And I think the GRE, the GRE does not seem as specific as we'd like it to be. There's so many weird things in the GRE that just the volume of a cone, really. I mean, sometimes these things just don't apply to. I think the PACAT is more specific to what we're doing here.
Dr. Nimblett-Clark?
Yeah, so I just wanted to just tap back to the coefficients. So for our didactic, so we look at we look at several things. So we have several courses, our anatomy, which has the strongest correlation. So for our 24 class, it was 0.765, for 25, 0.708, for 26, it was 0.659. So we're very, in terms of relationship to that. And same thing for our first semester GPA in terms of the overall performance, 0.717 and 0.606 and above. So I think overall for us, that relationship is there. What we are really waiting to see is what it looks like for the pants. Like for our 23 class, it was not significant. For 24, it was moderate, and we're waiting now for 25, which would be the third class that would have used the tool, and now we're waiting for those outcomes. So we have one more student we're waiting for. As soon as she's finished, the data will be, we'll be able to aggregate that data.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
We do have one more question for the University of Nevada related to the cost of the PACAT. There are two questions, so I'm going to put them together into one. I think the University of Nevada mentioned it is taken at no cost to the student. Is that correct? So the program covers that cost. Is it coming out of your budget? And if so, how do you navigate those who withdraw their acceptance to go to another program?
So yes, to the first question, the program absorbs that as part of our budget. That was also intentional. We didn't want to put our interest into the students' pool of money and make it ours. And the second, I'm not sure I follow the question. Can you repeat it?
Yes, absolutely. So the question is, are students responsible for the cost or not? Or if it is not the students, is it coming out of your budget? And how
Yes.
are you adding the add drop period in terms of cost?
For us, it's not relevant. So if a student takes it, we pay for it, and they go to another program, the next student that comes on, we pay for it, and they take it as well.
And I can share a little bit of additional information as to how that is handled on Exam Master's end. We do help with the add drop process, so we understand that there is movement early on. And we, of course, support programs in that movement. My team specifically handles that. Also, if a student, if a program purchases the PACAT for their incoming cohorts, students cannot hide those scores. So by us automatically providing programs with a code, it locks that score in with that program's code, and it cannot be hidden from the program.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We do have one question related to the change in applicant volume. And maybe Dr. Nimblett-Clark, I mean, I understand you were fairly new to the program. PACAT was already underway, but I was wondering if you had any insight as to how does your applicant volume compare to local competitors that do not utilize the PACAT? And this person specifically, we would be concerned that this was impose a barrier for applicants.
Not really, because the immediate programs that were around us, one program requires it, the other program is using it now. It's what you call optional for the students. So it's not, we don't see that as a barrier for our students. It's well advertised. We may have, in terms of volume, one or two, since I have been here, who have had an issue with cost, but for the most part, that has not come up as being a barrier for our students. As a matter of fact, this year was the first year that we actually transitioned to CASPA, and we basically increased our applicant pool without any challenges in terms of having scores of students taking the exam for us. So we don't really see this as a barrier at the time because it has not come up. We poll our applicants, and this has not been one of the things that have been brought up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Dr. Weinert, how does the volume compare to local competitor schools on your end? Have you noticed something with utilizing the PACAT?
The volume? What do you mean?
The applicant volume. Yep, the number of applicants.
Since we are doing it post acceptance, I don't really think that's a factor for us.
Okay, thank you. There is a follow-up question that ties in with that also for Dr. Nimblett-Clark. What percentage of your applicants are economically disadvantaged, and do you find the cost limits the number of economically disadvantaged applicants?
In terms of, about 80% of our students, because we are very mission congruent, and 80% of our students actually here in the Miami-Dade County are first generation, to college. And so from that aspect, we do see, we have had that internal concern, but we have not had it from the student side for it to be a concern in terms of us modifying our admission process, if that might answer the question. Did I get that right? Could you ask the question again so I could make sure I got it?
Absolutely. So the question was, what percentage of your applicants are considered economically disadvantaged? And then do you find the cost limits the number?
Yeah, but it has not. But we do have, so one of the things about, so remember we sit in a community college and we offer a dual enrollment program with Nova Southeastern University. And even comparatively to cost to other programs around the way, we still are one of, if they are from the Miami-Dade County area, this would be the cheapest program that they could earn a PA degree, probably throughout the country, to be honest. So that being said, we do have a high number of applicants that, come in, their first generation, and they may have challenges economically, but it has not limited us in the need to be able to use this tool because it just has not come up. And if it does, we do refer them to, Exam Master for that additional support. So hopefully that answers the question.
On your end, Dr. Nimblett-Clark, do you advertise that a 525 PACAT score is required for admission, or do you give a range?
No, so what we say it's preferred.
Preferred.
So the language used is preferred on our website, yes.
Okay, good. Then we have a question related to how the PACAT scores relate to biology coursework, so physiology and anatomy. Do students who score higher on the PACAT score higher in their biology coursework, meaning physiology and anatomy? Dr.
Are you talking about the prerequisite?
That is a good question.
Anatomy and physiology, or our internal And if it's a prerequisite, that would be a good question. We haven't looked at that yet, but that might be worth looking at. If it's once they matriculate into the program, our anatomy and physiology course, absolutely. It's a clear correlation that they do. If their scores are higher, they perform better.
Thank you. The question doesn't specify, but if the person who posted the question would like to follow up with that information, we can take a look at the other side of the coin as well. In the meantime, Dr. Lauf, do you have any information on your end to share about the correlation between physiology and anatomy?
I'll punt this one to Dr. Weinert.
Absolutely.
That's in particular, that value has been very helpful and does correlate. So that category of score seems to have the strongest correlation to predict success. And so therefore we are looking at those numbers again, and we see, okay, who can we support? What cohorts are needing more support in this sense? Definitely anatomy.
Thank you. And the person did qualify that question both. So they would like to know about the prerequisite and in-program biology science coursework. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Claudia, I may be able to contribute something. We published an article, if you may recall, in the Internet Journal of Allied Health that looked at the relationship between PACAT scores and prerequisite GPA. And this was like based on the research phase. And it was determined that none of those variables were statistically significant with the PACAT score.
Excellent, thank you. One question is related to the scholarship program for applicants, and I can speak to that. So the question is, can someone explain the scholarship program for applicants who may have challenges covering the cost? So we have a financial assistance program for the PACAT that anyone can apply to. They need to provide documentation as to their income, very similar actually as to what CASPA requires on their end, so that they don't have to duplicate documentation and they don't have to hunt down other things to submit for this process. And then we review their application, and as long as they meet the financial cutoff, so to say, and we use the government cutoffs for that. Or guidelines, I should say, then they receive the reduced cost of the exam, which is $178. The regular exam is $267. And that's all the questions for now. I'm going to wait another moment to see if anything else comes in. Okay. If there are no other questions, thank you everyone for joining us today, learning more about the PACAT and how 2 programs have implemented it. Dr. Scott Massey, thank you for moderating this session for us today. And of course, thank you to all 3 of you, Dr. Weinert, Dr. Nimblett-Clark, and Dr. Lauf, for joining us today, for sharing your experience with the PACAT, how it has benefited you, but also the challenges that you encountered along the way. We appreciate your partnership, and we definitely appreciate you being willing to share so openly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Great one.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thanks.
Great.